It's like
Okay.
91 and probably 80% humidity. We've had nonstop storms. I mean, golf ball, like baseball sized hail for the past few days. So
Wait, your audio keeps coming in and out. I told you were too technical.
your audio is cutting out right now.
Uh-oh. That's not a good start. All right, hang on, everybody. We'll get. Okay, there you
Friday
go.
the 13th tech issues.
I know, right? Okay, oh man. All right, there's something going on.
I said this to you the other day, man.
I
You said, like,
know,
Friday
I
the
know. We're
13th, you
like
sure you want
Friday
me
the
on?
yeah, right. Okay, so let me welcome everybody to episode 335 of the Jeet Kune Dialogues with Sifu Nik Farooqi of S2 Strategic Defense. I think this is your third or fourth time on the show, right? I think. I'm not sure. Do you remember? You have no idea. It's okay.
I lost you for a second, so but now you're back.
Okay. All right. No, I was saying, I was trying to remember how many times you'd been on the show before. Um, it is, so this is number 5 or this is number 4?
This should be number 5. I've been on with you 3 times, and then if one of those I interviewed you, if you recall.
Oh, right. Yeah,
That's
you
when I
did.
came with the dreadlocks.
That's true. I remember. Oh my God. Yeah. Okay.
I got a
All right.
haircut.
Well,
I got a haircut.
as everybody who reads the postcards should know, the reason why we're here today is because of this. But I want to show you something, right? I want to show you something, and let me put it into the feed, right? And you tell me if you remember this. Do you remember that?
100%. That was I don't remember what the year was, but that was in Golden, Colorado.
Yep. That's well, the way that it's, let me see if I can change the display. Okay, there we go. Right?
Wow.
Okay. So yeah, this was
Such a cool picture.
I want to say this was March of 2006.
It was either 6 or 4, and I can't remember which one.
Yeah, I think it was 2006 because I think the very next weekend I was in Atlanta with Dan Kennedy again. Now you want to see something? You want to see what's funny? You know, I told you that I've been reading your book on the commute up to Pompano, right?
I lost you.
Again, it's that Bluetooth of yours,
You're
man.
back now.
It's that Bluetooth of yours. So this is the other thing that that accompanies me on the train ride up to Broward. So that's what I wanted to ask you. Did you follow Dan Kennedy at all after this introduction?
No, sir.
No, right? No.
Now you've mentioned him a couple times. I've looked up a couple things here and there, but I really haven't followed him.
Yeah, but see, but this is the thing. See, because you had a great business mentor in your dad. You see? So you didn't need to follow Dan Kennedy or anything like that, right? Am I right?
My father was very old school, but he had great foundation and fundamentals that I learned a lot from. Sometimes by osmosis, sometimes by actual him teaching me. But yeah, I mean, my father was a Seafood Dwight. It's like this. So my parents came to the United States in 1972 with $6.50 to their name, not speaking any English, and their first apartment was a walk-in closet that they had rented from some other family.
Right.
My father started his business in the late in the 1980s is when he kind of started off doing his own thing, and by the 1990s, my father was building his empire. And so I respect people like that because they really came from the dirt. It wasn't for them. It wasn't about like I had a whole system or whatever. It was very instinctual. So I had to follow that, and I love that raw authenticness. And me being born and raised here in the U.S., I got a chance to get an education that kind of like I can go back and look at what my dad was doing and be like that makes sense, or I
Right.
could go back and be like, hey, Dad, that didn't make any sense.
And
So
you
but
started
yeah.
you started in your dad's business at 16, right?
Well, I'm first generation American, which makes me free labor as a kid. 19 is when I really got involved with the business. I was 19.
Right.
Yeah.
Well, that's a great start. I mean, and so I told you, right? So my questions, Nick, are probably not going to be in chronological order. Okay.
Backwards from the end
Right.
forward.
Yeah. Because
You introduced me at the end of the show.
right there you go. Right. I started with the last two chapters and what have you. And then I think in the description of the postcard, I talked about how the chapter on leasing, even though, and you and I have discussed this before, I was lucky. I had a really good relationship with my landlord because he was a fan of
Right.
the art and he was a fan of Bruce Lee. And so he was a fan of mine. But had I had the degree of knowledge that you put forth in that chapter on leases, subsequently, I might not have gone into that business relationship that didn't last too long.
I believe it, man. I mean, look, you got lucky, you got a good relationship going, and ideally, we want to build good relationships with the tenants, but sometimes it's on bad terms, and so you can't even have a good relationship with them.
Yeah,
You want that relationship to be like, hey, if I got myself in trouble, can I lean on this person? Maybe they can help me out a little bit. Hold part of this month. That's what the relationship's for. You never sign the lease; it has to be transactional. And
right.
believe it or not, in talking with many of the academies that or academy owners that have closed over the years, I would probably say 50%, maybe even 60% of it was due to a bad lease or the screwed because of a bad lease.
Yeah.
Meaning they
Okay, Nick,
decided
we got to do
to
something about your
close
audio.
up because they couldn't do enough business,
Yeah.
but they were still on the hook because they were into a bad lease, and now they're personally liable for another 18 months
Yeah.
at
Okay.
exorbitant amounts
All
of
right.
money.
Listen, your audio is really bad.
And
Um,
so they get
can we
themselves
unbluetooth
in
your audio or something?
a pickle, and so I,
Yeah. Okay. All right. So you didn't hear any of that, right? So we got to fix your audio because it's all screwy and do you have a way of just not using Bluetooth and just using the speaker
maybe
on the
try something
yeah,
else.
see if you can fix that because the Bluetooth thing doesn't seem to be working. No, not yet. Nope.
Is that better? Thank you.
Doesn't say something again. Do a mic check 1 2. Let me see.
I'll see if we now can you at all.
Yeah, I can
But
still
I
I
have
can well your image.
it.
All right, guys, hang on 1 second. All right, so the image is fine, right? It sometimes it's a little bit fuzzy and what have you, but it's the audio that's not picking up at all. It keeps coming in and out.
Okay. Are you
So
are
I'm
you
wondering.
with me, Steve?
Yeah,
Steve Dwight?
yeah, I can hear you fine, but the audio keeps coming in and out, and
Saying something?
so yeah. Is it possible for you to go
Is that better?
to? Is it possible for you to go Wi-Fi with the laptop but without Bluetooth?
Okay. See if this works out better.
Trying to sort this out. Can you hear me?
Okay. Yeah, I hear you fine.
You might be able to hear me, but I can't hear you.
Uh-oh. All right. Let me reload the page again. See if that fixes it. Stand by.
Seafood White?
Okay. How about now?
Mm.
No, you don't hear me.
Seafood White?
Yeah. I can hear you.
I can hear you. I can
Okay.
hear you now.
All right. All right.
So
Well,
weird.
we'll yeah, we'll
How's the audio now? Is it any better?
nah, not really. It's got that echoey effect and what have you. What about a headset? Or are you or you're
Well, is
using
this any
Wi-Fi
better?
headsets or something? That sounded better.
Are you, okay, if this works for you, then let's go with this.
Yeah, that's the cleanest audio so far, right?
Let's stick with that then.
Yeah. Okay. Cool. Okay. So,
Yep.
like I told you, the questions might not be chronological at all, right? But I recall you're saying that
It's okay.
when you got interested in Bruce Lee, there was something that you read, right? When you read the Tao, when you started reading the Tao, that's what sent you looking for formal training.
Originally, believe it or not, it was what led me to the Tao. What led me to the Tao was a lot of the movies. Enter the Dragon, was a big one in our house. My brothers and I watched it all of the time, just on repeat. We ended up flying, sidekicking each other, throughout the house all day long. Mostly they sidekicked me. I was the youngest, and so that goes kind of without say. But um, that got me interested in anything that Bruce Lee oriented. That's how I came about the Tao Jeet Kune. Received one as a gift, and fell in love with the book because it was the first time that I'd ever seen anything martial art it seemed more than just martial arts. It wasn't like what I was seeing in my traditional martial arts schools, where you're doing your hip punches. And it seemed so live and fluid. And I couldn't put my finger on it. I couldn't put my finger on, man, they have a kicking range, a punching range, a trapping range, a grappling range. And this was like something so unique because like I didn't know that you could fight
Uh-huh. Okay.
if that makes any sense.
Right. And then the Funak seminar happened, right?
Did I lose you?
Oh
1997 is when Paul Vunak came to Chicago, and I think it was Mike Van Beek that brought him out. And then I attended that, fell in love, had no idea what the hell I was doing, and that began my quest into JKD. And then it was 2000. So for 3 years, I looked for an actual academy in the Chicagoland area
Right.
that taught JKD. 2000 is when I ran into an academy that actually worked, and it wasn't like Hop Keto / Jeet Kune hybrid something. You know what I mean?
Right.
So
But between 97 and 2000, you had gone out to LA to see Paul?
I had gone out to see Paul Vunak. No, I started going out there in 2000. So that 3 year stretch in between,
Right.
I continued training at home in my traditional arts. I was at a kickboxing academy, boxing gym. Chicago
Right.
was really rich, full of kickboxing and boxing gyms
Yeah.
in that era. And so, had some traditional arts as well. And so I just stayed with that, but I always referred back to the book for guidance, as much as I could.
Right. Okay.
Yeah, which is, I got to be honest with you, Seafood Dwight, that wasn't so easy because there was things that were beyond my understanding. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And so it's like, I don't know if it was, it was, I don't want to say it was blind leading the blind. It was the blind staying blind. You know what I mean? It was just trying to capture a little bit of hope and being like, this looks like JKD.
Right.
So,
Yeah. No. I know exactly what you mean, because the same, something similar happened with me, because I didn't have a guide in Barbados. I had the books, right? So I had to do everything
yeah.
to the best of my ability from the books. But then you found the school, right? And was that Van
Yep.
Beek? Was it Van Beek's school?
No, it was Matt Numerick's school.
Right. Yes. Got it. Okay. And then you ended up teaching there, correct?
Yeah. So at that time, he had one location that was in Bloomingdale, Illinois. It's a Chicago suburb, and then he was looking to open another location out by Rockford, Illinois. And so I lived kind of in between. So I started at the Bloomingdale school and then went over to the Rockford Academy because I moved to Rockford, and that was just like 5 minutes from my house, which was like, I think that's half the reason why I moved there anyways. And so lived close to the academy, and then pretty much lived in the academy whenever I could. And if there was something not going on at one location, you can find me at the other location.
Right. Okay. All right. So now, when is it that you started thinking in terms of, I want to do this as well? I want to do this for a living, so to speak.
No, you got this. You got this mixed up. I never wanted to do it for a living.
Okay. You're right. Let me rephrase it. When was the seed planted that you wanted to run a school, your own school?
I knew that in like 2005, 2004 era, I wanted to open an academy, but I only had like a kind of like a really vague vision of what I wanted out of it, 2006-ish is when it started to kind of hone in, and I was like, okay, I'd really like to teach some cops and law enforcement. And so like I had like a bigger picture in mind. The one thing, I'm going to refer this back to something that I learned from watching my dad, not because he told me to, but because I saw it. What I realized about all businesses is that either you're an employee or you're a business owner, but you can't be both. And so at one point, I realized that you need to be able to come up with a structure in which you are not working in the business, you're working on.
Mm-hmm.
If I had an academy, by any calculation, you would actually have to be in the business for a long period of time, meaning you're the main instructor. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And so for me, I wanted to have this larger vision, and then I kind of reverse engineered and said, well, how do I get there? I'm a nobody, man. I'm a young guy. Nobody knows me. Like, like I got zero names, zero reputation, zero branding, zero any of that stuff that they teach you in school or college or YouTube. And so I knew that the academy would be. I knew that my academy would be an instrument in what I wanted it to do. You know what I mean? So I never
Right.
wanted to be an academy owner for long periods of time. I gave myself 10 years.
But you did admit in the book that at one point you kind of got taken off that goal of only 10 years, right? Did I read that right?
Yep.
What happened
Nope, that's
there?
right.
What caused you to momentarily lapse?
You get tired of chasing something if it's that's one part of it. And I think another part of it is that you really fall in love with being an instructor, being an academy owner, being around these people that you get to share so many different aspects of their lives with, and you get to be an impact. And so I really just loved that part of it. And so, for a little while, I just got complacent. I was just like, you know what, this isn't so bad.
Right.
Not so bad. By the way, Seafood Dwight, how many people do you have on with you right now?
I think there's I can't read. I think there's 11 total, and
Okay, I want to do.
nine
I
of
want to do
those
something.
might be
You.
Facebook, and 2 over on the YouTube.
Okay. I'm going to paste something into. Well, that's just host chat. I want to do
Yeah.
something here. If you can copy that link and then put that up. Here's what I want. And I'm sorry to interrupt, but you said something that's got me hot and bothered. Okay.
Okay.
Not hot and bothered. It's just on the brain. Just when you mentioned Barbados a few minutes ago when we were talking about like not having resources, we don't have a guide, so we go to the book. Okay.
Yeah.
2 days ago, you were on one of your live sessions, and you had mentioned Barbados in the context of one of your students has a spouse that is battling cancer. Okay.
Yeah.
You recall that, right? Okay.
Yeah.
And so I want to do something here. I'm going to say this. So on Amazon, my book is $19 for a Kindle book, $24 for a paperback copy. Okay. So it's not much money. If by the end of this session, we sell 5 of them, meaning 5 people listening to this thing, that's not even like $100. And I don't get all of that money anyway. They're cut. I probably end up with like $6 at the end of it. But that's $100. I'll double that $100. Let's make that 200, and I will donate that to the GoFundMe that you have set up for your student in Barbados. Now, $200 in fighting cancer isn't much, but if we're a community, then we stand for each other wherever we can. So just got to sell 5 of these things. I make nothing on this, people. So
Okay. I can't, I'm trying to see. So that thing that you entered in host chat,
want me to
can
text
you
it to
put
you?
it, or can you put it in? See how we can click host chat or public?
I put it in host chat.
See if you can put it in public.
I can't.
No.
I tried.
Okay. All right. Then let's see. Yeah, I don't have a way of I don't have a way of copying it and inserting it into the not right now. But
Into the chat?
yeah,
Okay,
I don't have a
we'll
way.
post it in the comments afterwards. So,
Right, yes,
So how
yes.
about this? We'll just do it we'll just do this afterwards. I'll post it up there, guys. I just want to make sure that we're giving something back, especially for one of Seafood Dwight's students. And so I'll post a link on there. Give me 5 review, 5-star. If it's anything less, then I think you should hold on to that forever and never talk about it. But give it a 5-star review on Amazon. Sell 5 of them. I'm going to double that money, and we'll put $200 into the GoFundMe before the weekend's up for Seafood Dwight's student.
I appreciate that, Nick. I really do. I really
Yes,
do.
sir.
Thank you, man. Right.
Yeah.
Okay. talk about motivations that people have for wanting to start a school. How many people? Let me ask you this: what percentage of people do you think open up a martial arts school so they can show off?
Ooh, that's a good question. I I don't know if any of them start. I don't know if any of them day one want to show off, but by day 10, that's what's on their mind. I'm an academy owner. I'm a black belt. I'm a whatever. You know what I mean? And so I don't know if day one, if that's the authentic root cause. I mean, how do you measure that anyways? Who's going to tell you? But I've seen plenty of them who have flexed being an academy owner as if that makes you the next coming of Jesus, you know?
Yeah, yeah, yeah. It. See, the thought of that question came from reading your book because you do such a good job of breaking down, right, the types of people and the approaches. And this to me, Nick, was one of the most fascinating aspects of the book. Your ability to break down stuff, right? Whether it's coming from motivations for wanting to run a school, to open a school, or whatever, but also the the format that you ended up um, mastering. I'll use that word. The JKD, Kali, BJJ, and I'll say fitness kickboxing model. So I want you
Yeah.
to explain it, but here's what I want to ask you. What came first? Was it realizing that JKD and Kali and BJJ work well together? And so you were like, well, if the arts work well together,
And Seafood Dwight,
then
you're freezing up on me, so I'm
structuring
catching like every
the
third.
academy in that way, right? Which one came first? Which realization came first?
Repeat the question for me because I caught part of it just with
Okay.
our Friday the 13th interruptions.
Okay. So the model, the structure that you ended up with, JKD, Kali, BJJ, fitness kickboxing, right? Because remember, you
Yeah,
you you break down two models, but then you go to a third model. And the third
that's right.
model resonated with me because that was my model.
I called it the bow tie model.
Right. Yes, yes, yes. Okay.
If is that what you're referring?
Yes. But I want to know how you came up with that, because was it because JKD, Kali, and BJJ work well together? Or was it so the decision was born out of the arts, or was the decision first and then the arts just happened to kind of serendipitously work well together? Does that make
Yeah.
sense?
Yeah, so it was actually more the other way around. It was the serendipity of, here's kind of what I'm exposed to. Here's what I'm able to teach. Let's put this out in the format. Oh, hang on for a second. They tend to mesh. Oh, wait a minute. There's a question, like how does a BJJ guy deal with the knife? Oh wait, Kali has a knife. You know what I mean? Hey, how did that knife come out in the first place? Hang on for a second. JKD has a whole lot of weapon stuff that we talk about, right? And
Yeah.
so like it was really kind of a natural progression. The and I feel like, and for you guys who are instructors out there, here's my advice: keep your eye open to observe, right? I would not have picked up on that synergy, that harmonious relationship with those, if I only was in my own mindset compartmentalizing all of those arts as an individual. It was because I was able to see how people, not me, my students, were now mixing one to the other. Hey man, I learned this in the 6 p.m. class. You should have shown up. They're talking to partners and such.
Right.
And it's like, hang on for a second. There's got to be a synergy happening here, because it's not the instructor doing it. It's that guy. You know what I mean? And that
Mm-hmm.
guy's the student. He's got no formal connection to either or.
Mm-hmm.
And so you have to be willing to observe for those natural occurrences. It's kind of like this. Seafood Dwight, have you heard of the red car theory? I say this. I don't think I mentioned this in the book, but there's a thing called the red car theory. Have you heard of it?
Yes. Yes. Is that the one where once you see one, then you
Okay.
start seeing them all over the place?
Yeah, so it's the incentivization of observance and awareness. So if I told you, like, if you came to my house and I said, "Hey, Seafood Dwight, how many red cars did you see in the neighborhood?" You might be like, "I don't know, like I don't have an actual account." And if I said, "Okay, fine, you're coming back tomorrow, and for every red car you see on the way in, I'm giving you $1,000." You're going to have the red car, what shade it was, what shape it was, you know what I mean, the license plate, the tire size, because you want your $1,000. If I incentivize you to observe certain things, then you'll know how to look for them all the time. And so, so this synergy that we're talking about amongst arts or the harmony that we see amongst multiple programs inside of an academy, that's the red car. Right? Observe it when it happens. Incentivize yourself to see it happens, because it opens up an entirely different format for you that you can really run with and scale inside of your business.
Now, let me talk about the arts themselves, because I have a thing, right? For me, everything falls under the JKD umbrella. The Kali does, the BJJ does, the Muay Thai does. Everything comes out of JKD. But what I've noticed is that people will run these classes separately, which is fine, because I know that there are people, it gives you a chance to focus to a certain degree on different things. But I say that you should always have an integration class where everything works together. Does that make sense? Okay. Did you hear any of that?
You're breaking up pretty bad, Seafood Dwight.
Oh, man.
I didn't catch any of that, unfortunately.
Okay.
But I know it was something very smart, because that's
it was about teaching every class separately and never having a class that integrates not the arts but integrates the fighting skills.
Yeah.
I think
It
at
happens
least
all the
once
time.
a
I mean, you and
week.
I've seen that.
Yeah, at least
Yeah.
once a
I
week.
mean, look,
you should have one of those classes.
something like that, and let people go after themselves, right? You'll see how their natural tendencies bring them to do things that are, it's like something I taught in jiu-jitsu. Hey, that looks like something I taught in Thai boxing. That looks like something I taught in, whatever.
Yeah.
Because the human body and the human mind will integrate that by themselves. It's our job as instructors to help compel that and create an environment where they can create and test for themselves.
Yeah. All right, guys, we're just gonna have to put up with because your image keeps flashing in and flashing out now, right? Um, so we're just gonna have to put up with that.
Same thing happens for you.
Yeah, on your end too.
Yeah.
Oh, man.
If you want, I can try to jump off and jump back on directly from my phone instead of the laptop to see if that helps any.
Okay, go ahead and do that. Go
Okay.
ahead and do that. Right.
Let's do this. I'm
Yeah.
going to make everybody's life. Yeah, either I'm going to make your life better or worse, and we'll figure out which one.
Well, while you do that, I'm gonna take a look at the comments here, because I think my friend Anthony Casey has been running his mouth, as he is prone to do, about
Yes,
concepts.
I've noticed.
Yeah,
Yeah, well,
well, we
I ain't
always
mad
have
at him.
no, no, guys like that. It's pretty simple to see where they're coming from, and then it's also simple to just, your heart goes out to them because they just have no idea what they're talking about, but that doesn't stop them from talking. All right, so let's give Nick a couple seconds to work the phone magic, right? So let's see, magazines here. Um, there's nothing wrong with teaching the various arts separately. I enjoy learning them separately first and then integrating later. Yeah, of course, right? Pierre says pretty much the same thing. I enjoy cultivating the specific art, right? But artistically, it's very gratifying to flow between them. Yeah. Um, okay, so let me get Nick back here. Hang on one second, guys.
See if this works better.
Okay. Already looks better.
1 second here. I'm just logging in.
Okay. And sounds better already. Is this the phone? You can't hear me yet.
Okay.
Okay. Can you hear me?
I think this is going to work.
Okay. Yeah, Dell. I think you're right. It's definitely on Nick's end. All right. Are you good?
It's connecting. So let's hope that this
Okay.
is connecting. So you see, Dwight, you got all this fancy stuff.
No, this is mostly a simple
Give
process.
me 1 sec. I'm gonna jump out and jump right back in.
Okay. Yeah, see these guys with their Bluetooth this and Bluetooth that. Me, this is it. Old school. Wire everything, right? Forget the the earbuds, forget the Bluetooth in the car, playing the music from your phone. Get yourself a 32 gig or 16 gig MP3 player with the USB cord and plug that into the USB in your car, right? And everything's copacetic. You don't have to worry about all this technology stuff. In the meantime, Nick very graciously offered to, if any of you guys go to Amazon and purchase his book during the show, just 5 copies, which is about $100. He'll double that and contribute it to this, which is my student Wayne Quinton down in Barbados. This is the GoFundMe link for his wife Petal's fight against breast cancer. So, in case we don't get that offer from Nick, here's the site to go to contribute to Wayne's fund. Okay, so let's see. Nope, not yet. He's not back yet. I do want to ask him, right? I'm going to show you guys something. I do want to ask Nick when he comes back about stuff like this, right? So you see this? This is let's call it original Bruce Lee um, stationery and paperwork and stuff. So apparently, all students had, even though this says the Tao of Kung Fu, all students had a student record, right? And that's where you'd find stuff like, their membership card and their rank and what have you. All that stuff would be in there, right? And so this is an example of the ranking system. So every time that the student was promoted to a rank and what have you, somebody would sign off on it. And I'm wondering if you guys are aware that there are still people in the JKD clan that use this type of stuff, what they call the passport, right? Um, because I just got mine from Cas Magda, okay, and so if you guys can tell me in the comments if you're aware of people still using this type of thing, right, where you keep a log of like the seminars that you've attended, or if at the school people have a written record, like a card like this, where as people go through the ranks and what have you, that they do stuff like that, right? Okay. So while I wait for Nick to come back live, I'm trying to find him here, right? While I wait for him to come back live, let me take a look at the comments again. Anthony Casey should pretty much stop commenting, right? Because he's got nothing of quality to say. Think I might end up um, blocking him as a friend so he can't come on here and comment his nonsense, right? Yuski says, so many schools keep the doors open with the kids program. What strategies do you use to build the adult program different from how you build a youth program? Yeah, okay. I'll let Nick give his idea about that, and then I'll chime in with my thoughts on it, Mike. Um, okay, there we go. All right. Whoop, whoop, whoop.
Is that any better?
Wait, well, sounds good. Looks good too.
Okay,
Can
so
you hear me?
let's go with this. Okay, cool.
Okay. While you were gone, I was telling
I'm gonna
people to
mute.
keep it analog and old school and just wire everything, man.
You're not wrong, man. You're not wrong. I'm gonna move those. At least we don't have the backlight of the windows coming
Yeah.
through.
Right.
Okay,
Okay. Hey, so
perfect.
listen. So you had invited Mike Yuski to send in a question, and he just did, and it's essentially
Uh-oh.
this, right? He says many schools keep the doors open with their kids program.
Yeah.
So he wants to know about
Yeah.
strategies that you use to build the adult program, and if they were different from the strategies used to build the youth program.
Perfectly great question. I love this question because I've never had a kids program a day in my life. Not one. Okay? Not one.
Right.
And by the way, nothing against it. I grew up in kids programs. I,
Yeah.
I love them, but they're not for me. They're not for my academy. And by the way, if you contact the gurus in the martial arts business world, they all tell you the same stupid things. Okay, put a kids program in there. I remember when I first started, I was speaking to another one of those gurus,
Yeah.
and he was telling me to do birthday parties. I said birthday party. I'm like, I don't have a kids program. I have all adults.
Yeah. Right. Well, wait, but no, that's a good idea, though, I think.
I think that comes back to that sparring night that we were talking about.
Okay.
And so, uh, and so yeah. Here's the strategy. First and foremost is the brand. Okay, I'll explain this to you, and I go in detail about this in the book about building a brand. What is it that you go after, or like what is it that your school or your name or your logo, what does it represent? If it is known or associated to kids programs, that's what you're going to get.
Hmm.
If it's known and associated to adults, that's what you're going to get. Okay,
Hmm.
so my vernacular, when I started to put out a whole bunch of marketing from day one, was adult self defense, edge weapons, street fighting styles, Bruce Lee's Jeet Kune 18 and up only.
Yeah.
Get it? And
Yeah.
so when I started getting bodies in, it was all about them because my marketing from day one said that this is not a kid's place. By the
Right.
way, the name of my first academy was Ballistic Fighting Methods. Who the
I
hell wants to
remember.
drop off to a 4-year-old at ballistic? You know what I mean? You know?
Yeah, I remember.
Yeah.
But the
And
thing
so,
is,
and
but people should
go ahead.
not misunderstand. You do give good advice about a kids program in the book,
I
right?
want business advice is business advice. You have to figure out what you want to do. I at least admit the fact that I never wanted a kids program, so I didn't go after that. But I
Hmm.
want the academies to be successful, which means take my own personal preferences out of it and just give advice that's good on the fundamentals and foundations on building a successful business.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, when I started, I think I've told you this story before. My kids program started because I was not full time yet, so I had a colleague at work at Eastern Airlines, and she asked me if I would train her young boy. So I said sure. So I started teaching him private
Okay.
lessons, right? And then when we moved into our first commercial location, that's when one of my adult students asked me about training his 7-year-old boy. And I said, sure, just bring him to class with you. So now you got, right? You got 19 adults and a 7-year-old training with his dad, right? Okay.
That's right.
So
That's
after
right.
a while, I go, you know what? That's not really working, right? But even then, we didn't really. It took a few years before we actually did start the 5 p.m. kids classes, right? Which I dubbed Junior Jeet Kune, right? And then, but that we started at age 7. And then the Little Dragons program. Remember Little Dragons from Century Martial Art, right? That
Yep.
came about.
Yep.
And my girlfriend at the time, she had a 4-year-old son, and she was
Okay.
already teaching. She was teaching the fitness kickboxing. So I knew that she could teach a Little Dragons class. And I rationalized and I go, well, if anybody should have a Little Dragons program, it's a Jeet Kune Do school, right? And that's how it
Yep.
started. You
By the
know.
way, I'm gonna give our friend Mike Yisku a additional flavor for that same question because it's such a great question. My third or fourth pieces of grassroots mailing that I did, little flyers. Okay, so I was printing out. I would buy colored paper from a paper store like orange or yellow or something that stuck out, right? And I would print quarter page. So I do 4 flyers on one piece of paper.
Hmm.
Fourth piece of marketing was very simple. It had my name and logo and phone number and address on it. And then the language on it said as follows: are you tired of being in a class with a bunch of 9-year-olds? Well, no shit, okay?
Yeah.
Call ballistic fighting methods. And I had my number. You know how many people I got from that? I had dads and moms call me and be like, dude, I'm 48 years old. I don't know why I'm in a martial arts class breaking
Right.
boards with 4-year-olds.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Or and so that was like my third piece of mark because I understood something. I understood that you have to make, like, for different people, you have to market differently. Your language is
Right.
that. That's why you have marketing campaigns to a
Yeah.
target market audience. It's in the name, target market.
Yeah. Mhm.
When you try to do like a buckshot approach, like, hey, we have edge weapons class, firearms, and little dragons. It doesn't compute. It doesn't,
Right.
like, there's no synergy between that, you
Yeah.
know.
Yeah.
And so you have to find your target. I'm going to go for 18 to 24 or 25 to 35 or 35 and 55. I want this kind of demographic. You know what I mean? And start targeting the language that you need for them. By the
Right.
way, there's a tool now that I didn't have back then. It's called Chat GPT. It'll write it for you.
Yeah. But now
You know?
here's the thing though. Is not the mistake that people use in when they use the buckshot approach because they're thinking in terms of numbers, they're thinking in terms of quantity. If I have all these programs, if I can have from age 4 to age 64, I'll make more money because I'll have more people coming in. Isn't that
Tell
what they're
me that you're
thinking?
going to teach the. Yeah, they're trying to put it all on one piece of paper, right? They're trying to put the entire Jeet Kune library or art of war or whatever you want to call it onto one flyer. So they're like, yeah, I'm going to do this many pieces. Well, problem with it is they're all fighting each other, and all of that goes to waste. You're
Yeah.
better off segmenting your target, segmenting the message for that target, and then appropriately finding the means to reach them and come up with 2 to 3 different touch points. When I say touch points, I mean like, hey, what different types of marketing. Hey, I caught this flyer, then I saw you guys at the local, mall doing a demo or something like that. You know what I mean?
Right.
You want 2 to 3 different touch points, and so you have to be careful. Like, yeah, you're right, Seafood Dwight. I don't know if they're doing it just to be cheap or just cost efficient, or if they think that that's the right thing to do. It's either which way. It's not. It's not the
I'm,
right thing to do by any
I'm going to tell
stretch.
I'm going to tell you what I think it is. I think people are afraid to specialize. You see,
Well,
because
we talked about that early on.
there's a comfort. So it's a Brian Tracy thing. Brian Tracy advises against being a wandering generality and instead becoming a meaningful specific. And I think that's what the problem is.
Yeah.
People are like, if I offer across the board, all ages and whatever, more and more and more and more people. And now I'm not saying that that won't work, but like you say in the book, it's probably going to give you more headache, right, than going after a
Yeah.
specific market and learning what it takes to attract, induct, and retain the members of that market.
Yep.
You
I
know,
agree. By the
that's
way, if you think about it, that's 100% correct. And if you think about it this way, number one, you're not going to teach a 4-year-old the same thing you're going to teach a 24-year-old, the same thing you're going to teach a 64-year-old. They're not the same people. Okay. And so your whole curriculum is going to be different. So why are you putting it on one piece of paper?
yeah,
By the way, what a 4-year-old is interested in and what a 24-year-old is interested in, a 64 are interested in, that's completely different as well. Early on in the book, I talk about the Ford versus Ferrari. You probably remember that chapter, right?
yes,
What I
yes,
say is this: Ford makes, whatever, $300 billion a year. Okay. So does Ferrari. But Ford has to produce, uh, uh, 20 different models of car and sell at bulk, where Ferrari has to make 2 models and they sell very little.
right,
Both make money.
right,
Which one do you want to be? For me, because I had a bigger plan outside of being an academy owner, I paid a lot of attention to becoming a specialist
hmm,
because my niche marketing is typically what wins.
yes. Well, I
Bulk
use
marketing is just the numbers.
right. I use the French pronunciation, so it doesn't rhyme
Yeah.
as well, right? But one of the things that they used to talk about, that Bill Glazer used to talk about, is and Dan Kennedy, is there's riches and niches,
Yeah. You
right?
know, Oh, here's something else, right? Did I lose you? I know it's not me this time, man. I'm sitting still. I haven't done
Yeah, it's still going in and out, but we'll live with that.
Yeah, but that's you going in and out, not me.
Oh
At least from what I
no,
can see.
no, it's no, it's on your end, but it works both ways, right? But not to worry.
Oh, gotcha.
Okay. All
Yeah.
right. So yeah,
So so so
can you see the comment from Mike that I put up on screen?
I see. Perhaps it's time I bought your book and start my own business. I agree.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Go to Scotland and learn real JKD, Mike, because what
Yeah.
amount of time did Bruce Lee spend in Scotland? Um, New messages, Bill. Yeah, I'm
Yeah.
not seeing. I'm not
Okay.
seeing what you're referring
No
to,
worries.
sir.
No, the important one was what Mike said about buying your book and starting his own business,
Well,
right?
you should buy the book and help contribute so that way I can make a donation to the GoFundMe for Seafood Dwight's student whose wife is fighting for cancer. By the way, we're martial artists. We preach about community and taking care of our own all the time.
Yeah.
That's why we're doing it,
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
so let's and whoever doesn't buy a book, Seafood Dwight's going to put them on the I Love Jeet Kune
I'll
page.
wait, see, hey, listen, this is the thing, right? See, so
Yeah.
I talk a lot on Facebook and YouTube with the podcast and what have you, right?
Yep.
But what people don't know is that I listen more than I talk, and I observe even more than I listen and talk. So I know where
So you
everybody's
probably
coming
love my prelude to my father, which is right in the opening of the book.
from. Right?
Did
I
you
know where
did you like that?
I wait, because let me
I'll pull it
refresh
up.
my memory on it, right? Let me refresh my memory. Hang on one sec. Because, right, teaching
It
me,
says
yeah,
to
so
them.
here's what it says. Thank you for, here, dedicated to my father. Thank you for not just teaching me about business, but also for teaching me to open my mind and my heart before I open my eyes and mouth. Yes. Yes, right, man. I could tell you that
Yeah.
just reading. I was like, man, I wish I'd have met your dad. I think your dad would have been a real fun guy to hang out with.
My father was very fun to hang out with as long as you had a good relationship with him. He was one of those folks that could speak with anyone at any level. You know what I mean? Like he just had
Hmm.
a natural talent to. If he's sitting with a bunch of teenagers, he's a teenager plus one. If he's sitting with a bunch of 20
Right?
year olds, he's 31. You know what I mean? He's just 1%
Yeah.
ahead of them.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? He was.
Yeah.
Yeah, but for us kids, my siblings and I, my father just continually just delved information because he realized that at some point, boys, you're gonna have to fend for yourself.
Okay,
You know,
Nick, I want to
and
ask
so
you since Anthony Casey is accusing us of not talking enough JKD, right? Because he's so smart. Okay, I want to show you.
yeah.
I want to ask you this, right? Let me move the image. Okay, so here is the student rank card. Can you see this?
Yes.
Okay, that's the student rank card. This is examples of Bruce Lee's stationery, his um, his business card, membership cards, right? That type of thing. This is I don't know what that is. And then this is like the folder, the personal record that every student had. And so you kept all their
Yeah.
relevant documents inside this, right? Okay. Or you're familiar
Yep.
with these things, right? Okay. So
Yes.
it raises the question for me. What do you think of Bruce Lee's business acumen, especially in his early days, which is when a lot of this stuff was taking place?
Bruce Lee's acumen was actually great in some ways and really shitty in other ways.
How so?
Okay, it's a good question. Great. Let's start with that. He obviously knew how to use the silver screen and promote, right? The guy in front of a camera, the guy on the screen. He had that branding aspect to him. And he built a
Wow.
personal brand, right? He did a great job building a personal brand.
Okay.
Student wise, like I know, like if you take a look, so technically, I suppose there's three academies plus the backyard. Would that be fair to say? Like you have the Oakland Academy, the Seattle Academy, and then the LA Academy plus the backyard, right?
Yeah. Yeah. Well, the backyard was like review class, or right? You can come get supplemental training in the backyard on the weekend.
Yeah. And so your answer is kind of answers the question itself, because when I said was there four academies or three academies plus the backyard, you went, meaning we're not really sure what there is for him. Everybody had something different.
Hmm. Well,
How do
no,
you
I,
bring
I think
uniformity
I,
to
I
a
don't
business?
think I don't think the backyard. I don't think there were people training in the backyard, with the exception of Ted Wong, right, who were not members
Yeah,
of the Chinatown School. I think Ted Wong is probably the only
yeah,
person
right.
who was like his what do you call it, Guy Friday, right?
Pet
But
project. Pet project.
here's right. But here's the thing. See, you said that he knew about Brandon and what have you on the silver screen. But do you know
Yeah.
that Bruce Lee did a phenomenal amount of demonstrations in the early years in
Yes.
Seattle?
Yes. Yep, yep, I do know that. College days and such. By
Yeah,
the way, paid his way through school, right? Teaching, and so like it. I think I think he had business acumen, but I think it was kind of like very instinctual. So I love that about him. You know what I mean? It
hmm,
wasn't like a refined process, like you have an MBA kind of like. It wasn't like that kind of a thing.
right, right.
Um, and he knew how to build his personal brand. I mean, by the
Now,
way, like
now, hang on a second. That's your dad as well.
yeah,
Yeah,
yeah.
yeah,
Yeah.
yeah,
Both foreigners,
yeah,
both came with nothing. Yeah,
yeah.
yeah. Oh, by the way, I want to point something out because I want to answer something for our friend Anthony Casey. JKD is a system of personal refinement, self discovery. That is not just about punching and kicking. Every aspect of business, every aspect of your life can be influenced by your method, your understanding of Jeet Kune Do. I was intercepting many of the issues that I saw coming in business, finance or otherwise. Okay?
Yep.
If you
Hmm.
don't understand the principles of business, don't talk to us about the principles of Jeet Kune Do. Let's talk about Jeet Kune Do more, because Jeet Kune Do is not something you do on the mat. It's a part of your life, every aspect, or it's just not.
Right. Yeah, no, it's all about level of understanding. And what Anthony doesn't understand is that, like, he has this thing now where he'll put something up, like a picture of Bruce Lee doing a low sidekick, right? And then he's like, "Oh man, I got 200 likes. Take that, Dwight. You don't ever get 200 likes." And I'm like, "Anthony, that don't mean people like you. They still think you're an idiot. They like the picture of Bruce Lee kicking Ted Wong."
Well, the correct answer is that, and then it's whose page is it, and who's following the page, and who's following Anthony Casey. Look, I don't want to
Right?
pick on anyone. If that's the elementary version of understanding that somebody has, my
Yeah.
effort is just to try to help expand past that. Although I've seen a bunch of the posts and I just choose to not interact with it. I'm
Yeah.
here for people like Mike and people like Doug and other folks that are here. I'm here for you. I'm here for the
Right.
instructors. I'm here as a resource. The
Okay.
naysayers, I don't have time for you. I just don't.
I'm gonna give now. Here's a question that I hope can stump you. All right, you ready for this? Who's the best Jeet Kune Do person you've ever come across? I mean, I'm sorry. I'm sorry, hold on.
Wow.
The best, no. The best Jeet Kune business person you've ever come across. I'm sorry.
Nice. Besides you, the best JKD business person I've come across originally was actually, believe it or not, Matt Thornton till he found his own way.
Until he defected. Yeah.
Yeah. But you know who has the best team? Dan Inosanto by far. He's got marketing people, he's got booking people, he's got seminars, he's got academies. He's never going to run out of money. He's got students, he's raised instructors. He's got people representing his brand
Right.
globally.
And he doesn't know what he's doing in terms of that. Because there are people who think that he has strategized all of this and that he has put all of this in place, right? And that he like stays on top of it, and they have no idea that all of that happened around him, and he just went this way. I'm teaching. That's it. That's the only thing he knows to do.
Yep.
Right? Okay.
Yep. That's right. Yep. But
What,
that's why I said he's got a great team.
right. Yeah. But see,
I'm specific about that.
right. But a regular normal person assembles that team. It's not done around him or for him or whatever.
Yeah.
'Cause he has no he has no idea, you know. What let's go back, because this is something that we probably should have talked about at the beginning. How do you teach and or advise people to find their why?
I love this question. Okay. So indulge me for a second. You may have heard this before. Plenty of famous people say it too. I'll just put it in my words. Your why is built in four different categories, like four different phases, let's just say. Phase one is pure survival. Phase two is status. Phase three is freedom. Phase four is purpose. Okay. If you go back to 2007, when I first opened, like when I started teaching for myself and doing my own thing, it was survival. My family was coming out of the '05 to '08 economic crash. I had $40,000 a month going outbound to pay for stuff, and literally like $300 a month coming inbound. Okay.
Yeah.
So I was huge in the negative. So I needed something to survive, in the construction development business that we had as a family wasn't going to cut it. Okay, so what was my why that I started an academy then? Money,
Yeah.
survival. I just needed to put food on the table. Okay. Then it became about status. When I said status, I mean this. I want to buy things. I want to buy a nice car. I want to buy a nice house, and yada, yada, yada. Okay. So it becomes about status, but this is where people tend to get caught up, because you realize that you're building your own jail, right? When you buy stuff and it has payments, you have to keep working until those things are paid off. Meanwhile, you're buying other things, so it's like a self-fulfilling prophecy. Okay, and so that becomes the status part of it. I wanted freedom. Okay, I wanted to get out. I already had when I I had a $500,000 house. I have Escalades, Corvettes, motorcycles, airplanes. Like I had that shit. Okay, all of it. It wasn't fulfilling, but it was fulfilling at the moment. It wasn't right. It was just right now. You know what I mean?
Right. Yeah.
Okay, but I wanted freedom from that. By freedom, I mean I'd like to be able to take a vacation every now and then. I'd like to not be in my academy 5 days a week, all morning, all afternoon, all evening long. Man, it'd be nice if I could actually just sit down and not have the phone ringing or the emails coming in or whatever, just to be able to sit with my family, right? I wanted my time back. And so that became the freedom. That was part of the reason why I ended up coming here to Texas, from Chicago to Texas. Ultimately, you have to find your purpose. And so what I tell people on the purpose aspect is this. Here is a bag of infinite money. It will handle you in the next 5 generations of your family. Okay? You have time. You can buy whatever you want to buy. You don't have to worry about survival. What is it that you want to do with your life?
Right.
And for me, when I had that vision, I started looking at it as like, well, I want to do two things. One, I want to be as an operator for a business above and beyond, like not actually in the dirt on a day in day out basis. But the bigger thing that I want to do is be a good mentor to help raise whatever the next generation I can have an impact on would be. That's it. That was my purpose. That's half the reason why I
Right.
wrote the book. I didn't need to write the book,
Right.
you know?
Yeah.
And
I
so
mean, because you had
find
been
your
working on the
purpose
book.
and figure out
You've been working on the book for a while, right?
ages. You remember you used to give me shit about it like
No,
on
no,
Facebook. Like, are you ever gonna read
no, no, no. Hey, man, my book is
Yeah.
still a PDF. You got a hard
Yeah.
copy, Amazon Kindle. Is there an audio version too?
I was gonna ask if you would be the person, the narrator of that book because your voice is much more interesting than mine.
No, it isn't. No, it isn't. I don't. No, man. There are some people that I hear like this has happened to me twice. The last time, I think it was on board an American Airlines flight, and then the other time, where the
Yep.
hell was I? I forget. But I have actually gone to people and said, you should look into voiceover work, like for Disney or something, man. Right? I wish I had that kind of voice.
Yeah.
I don't have a voice for radio or TV or whatever. I just have this weird. People go, well, I know you're from somewhere, but but it's not a Trinidadian accent and it's not a Barbadian accent, right? It's just this thing. But yeah, if you want me to give it a shot, I'll read your book for you.
That's right. That's right. Well,
Right?
so I'll tell you honestly. So when I wrote the book, it was a brain dump and then kind of a heart dump. And then when I
Mhm.
when I finally got published, I just needed time away from it. You know what I mean? I'd given it everything that I had. I wanted to step
Right.
away from that part of it.
Wait, well, okay, hang on. That's cool. A brain dump and a heart dump. Then was there editing?
There was editing. I took a lot of stuff out because the book was going to become this thick. And so I was
Ah,
like, what can I take out? And, you
right,
know,
right.
what was irrelevant to the point?
Okay.
What is going too much in the storytelling and not enough into and like I wanted to make it consumable and straight to. And if you notice, like if you guys check out the book, you'll realize that it's part memoir, part business book. Would that be kind of fair to say, Seafood White?
Yes. And that's what makes it excellent, right? But
I agree.
I gotta tell you, Nick, sounds to me after the brain dump and the heart dump, like you were like, well, it's got to be simple and direct, right? And non classical. And then it sounds to me like there was a decrease. I don't know, man. It might be a JKD book. I might force you to retitle it. Mastering the Martial Arts Business as well as Jeet Kune.
The simplification, I can say that. I don't know if it's a decrease or if it's a simplification, but yes, you
Yeah.
know.
Oh, for sure.
Um, but
For sure.
but like when you're holding on to a project for that long, and now you're a testament to that, right? You used to give me, like from 2000 and 17 every other week,
Yes.
like, hey, how's that book that you're not writing, And so, you know,
Yeah.
so
No.
I needed to get that out because I wanted to memorialize some stuff, but I wanted to, and it was important for me to give it in a memoir fashion
Right.
because anybody like business books aren't interesting to anyone.
No,
Like who
not at
wants to talk
all.
about KPIs and ROIs and all? But at least if I could tell you where I was in my life, why am I facing this particular challenge? And why
Yes.
you'll probably face it too in your own way, and how do we
Yes.
navigate that? Then suddenly
Yes.
people look at that and be like, dude, I can so relate to that. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And so
Oh,
that's what I
yeah.
wanted.
Right. Because, Rich Sheffrin, he was not a mentor of mine, but he's one of the business gurus that I met through Dan Kennedy. I remember him saying
Yeah.
once, that which is personal is common. Because we all tend to think when we're going through our stuff. So, like when you talked about the horrors of the 2006 to 2008, right? That much, I suffered tremendously, right?
Yeah.
In that period as
Yep.
well. We all did. So that which is
We all.
personal is common. So when you start reading your stories in a book like this, a bunch of people, they're going to be like, holy crap, me too. So yes,
Yeah.
Mike and
Yep.
others listening, it is time to buy this book and start your own business. Believe me, it really it really is. All right, let's play a
I think
game.
I, one of the things one of the things that I also wanted in the book was like, so Seafood Dwight, you talk to a lot of people globally, and so you've heard this before. I know you have, even though it's not a public conversation. You've heard people go through problems in their personal life, and a lot of it roots from the time, energy that they have to expend on the academy. It will
Yes,
hurt their relationships, like marital relationships.
yes,
You saw that I actually have extensive information on one, how to navigate that part of it, and number two is all the stuff that nobody talks about. I've talked about, like, hey, I've had to wake up at 2 o'clock in the morning because I've had students of mine getting chased by gang members. I've had to
yep,
deal with people who have come to me and been like, hey, Sifu Nick, I need to have a conversation privately. I got diagnosed with HIV/AIDS.
yep,
I've had to have people come to me who are on a suicidal, and we internalize that. We're martial
yeah,
artists. That's what we do. We
yeah,
absorb and then we just contain. You better start getting your cards in a row. And I saw
yeah.
and that's a part of the business mastery. It's not just about marketing. I don't
It
know a business book that has spoken about that yet.
not definitely. I don't know about a martial art business book. Not, I don't think so at all. Right? And when I was reading those things, I was like, man, because I've had run-ins with students and what have you, but never anything as grave as what you describe in the book.
Really?
Not
Even with your
yet,
experience?
not that grave. No, I mean, I've had people who were I had one guy that we saved from a Jesus cult, you know, but suicidal,
Yeah.
um, HIV. I can't think of stuff like that. But yeah, I mean, it's these are the aspects of being a school owner and an instructor that you never get, that you cannot be paid for, but we become spiritual advisors and psychologists and therapists and what have you, and they never told you about that. If you're in the traditional
Yep.
arts while you're trying to get your black belt, right, they never tell you about that. If you're in non-classical like JKD and Kali, as you're going through apprentice, associate, full instructorship, they don't tell you about that part at all.
Well, and it's like, like, how can you not be? You're a part of the martial arts brings on a lot of insecurities. People come to you because they're overweight, they're bullied, whatever, right? Whatever's on their mind, but they think that you have part of a solution. And so you're tickling a very internal component of their thought process. And then you become an impact on it, an influence. And so your presence alone brings on this dopamine rush. You were
Yeah,
instantly placed on a pedal, right? Or
yeah,
pedestal, I should say.
kind of stuff. Yeah,
And that comes with responsibilities. People don't realize that. It just
right.
does.
And that's why it's so important to focus on developing yourself into the best version of yourself, right?
Yeah.
A- as opposed to our good friend here who is all about cutting people down and just doesn't get it, right? Just doesn't get it. Okay, so I wanted to play a
No.
game, right? I wanted to play a game.
Oh,
I'll call the name and you'll tell me your thoughts about them as being martial art business people. Okay, ready?
yep.
Okay, Eric Paulson.
I love Eric and Tanya. CSW always jumps out at me. His brand,
Yeah,
CSW.
yeah.
Yeah. Do you want me to give you like something, a story about him, or do you want me to just name out
Well,
whatever comes to mind
I
right
want,
away?
but since the theme slash topic of our conversation is the business of martial art, right? I call the name and you tell me, yeah, I think that their model, whatever, something like that.
I'm gonna call him the entertainer.
Ah,
Of
yeah,
the, and you
yeah,
might recognize that from when I talk about like the different types of
yeah,
arts.
right, yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
Okay, well, now
So that's what
along the
comes to
same
mind. When people
lines,
say Eric Paulson,
right? Okay, along the same lines because they are so tight with each other. Greg Nelson.
yeah, technician.
Ah,
He's such a, he's such a great technician.
yeah, yeah. Okay, Burt Richardson.
I've never met him, but I have a ton of respect for Burton Richardson. I kind of call him the expert. You know, he's got so much information in his head uh, that he's been around. He's been all over. I mean, he was the first person to ever talk about African Zulu stick fighting. You know what I mean? Like at least that I heard. And
Yeah.
so I consider him the expert. He's just one of those guys. You know,
Okay. All right. Well, we're kind of well without him. We're kind beyond him. We're stuck with the Vikings. Rick Fay.
I think Rick Fay is going to be the next Dan Inosanto.
Ah, yeah. I can see that. I can see that. Yep. Okay.
Yeah.
Now these guys, I'm not sure if you know them. Do you know Alex Chan and Luigi Cuellar from New York, from New Breed?
No, I don't.
No. Okay. All right. Okay. So all right. So okay, we'll go with those four. All right. Where do you happen to know your friend that did the business plan on the napkin, right? So I've heard Rich Sheffrin talk about that. I heard Bill Glazer talk about that. I heard Ryan Dice talk about that. Do you happen to know where your friend got the business plan on a napkin from?
I don't know if that was inspired or if that was just a natural thing, if I'm all honest with you, but I've seen that
Uh,
done so many times by different people in
right.
different, but
Yeah.
and not even just in martial arts. I've seen that done in so many places.
Oh yeah.
And
Yeah.
I don't know, but they like now they actually call it a napkin. Like, look, so I have real estate investments, right? That was one of the things that I did to go from status to freedom.
Right.
Okay.
Yeah.
Uh, and so I do napkin math on my investments all the time to see if that's even a conversation worth having.
Mm-hmm.
You
Mm-hmm.
know what I mean?
Yeah.
And so and my dad used to have, those stupid, like the yellow paged, it was a notebook, but it was all yellow. Do you remember that?
Yeah.
It looked like regular paper, but it was yellow.
Like
Uh,
like
and so my
You mean
dad used to keep,
a legal
my
pad
dad
or
had
an
all,
actual notebook?
he had a legal pad, but they came in like the big size, and then they came in like the smaller,
Yeah,
like
yeah,
five by
yeah.
seven kind of a
Uh
size.
huh. Yeah.
So my dad used to keep the 5 by 7 size with him no matter where he went. And so every time he'd be like, "Hey Dad, what's going on?" The first thing he'd do, you know what I mean? And so like that's the way it was.
Right. Yeah.
And so yeah, like he'd sketch it out, he'd make diagrams and all kinds of, and so that's because I think it's such a nice way to brain dump in a mini way.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Oh, for sure. For sure. Right. Okay. All right. So I'm looking at the clock here, and I know that you got stuff that you could be doing. Um,
I got you,
what?
Seafood Dwight. But I
Okay.
would like to do this. I'd like to, if any of your folks would like to ask any kind of a question, guys, I'm here for you just as much as I'm here for Seafood Dwight. But Seafood Dwight and I talk offline all the time, and so you and I don't. And so if there's questions about anything that I can help you as an instructor, as a business owner, not always the same thing, by the way, throw it
Mhm.
up. Seafood Dwight
Yeah.
and I'll read it out, and I'll give you whatever
Yeah.
I got. Like I'm not.
I'll
I don't
I'll
hide
keep
this, man.
I'll
It is
I'll
what it
keep
is.
I'll keep an eye on the comments just for you. You don't have to worry about it. Okay. So
Yeah.
Here's a thing that struck me, and I think it was when you were talking about the three models. You said, and by intermediate, you're referring to students and their length of time, and you said, and by intermediate, I mean 9 to 15 months. And I thought, is
Yeah.
he crazy? Right? What is that
Yeah.
about?
I say that in a few different, I think, kind of refer to that in a couple different places. Number one, if you take a look at the overall lifespan of a martial arts student, it's not very long in the first place, right?
Right,
That's not
right.
something like you and I are unique. You've been doing this for ages. You know, I've been behind martial arts my entire life in JKD for whatever 25 years or whatever, and so like we're a unique breed in that sense. The average guy who comes through your door has a 15 to 18 month lifespan. You know what I mean?
Hmm.
And so if you take a look at that timeline, let's just say if he's even 2 years or maybe three, 15 months would put him kind of smack in the middle. That's an
Right,
intermediate kind of a student,
right. Yeah.
you know?
I figured that was why you did it. But then that brings me to
Yeah.
another question. Should we fight against that, or should we accept that the average person is only going to be around for 2, maybe 3 years?
No. So I don't fight other people's tendencies because I can't force them into anything.
Mhm.
But you probably experienced this a lot too, just because at least the feedback that I know from your actual students. Look, I've had students of mine. Most of my students were 10 plus years with me.
Right.
Right? They came from the other academies and stayed with me through my term. And
Right.
then when I left and I go back to Chicago every now and then, they're the first persons to call and be like, "Hey Nick, are you going to host a training? Can we come down? Can we pay for a private lesson?" Like, so they've been with me. My average student would probably be with me for 6 years, six to
Right.
7 years. Okay,
Right. Yeah.
and so how do you fight the masses? You don't. You culminate and inspire the ones that are gonna shine through the group. The rest of
Mhm.
it are the numbers,
Yeah.
and I'm not
We,
here to change the numbers.
right. So, for those of you who were not here, so I'll put the picture back up again. So this is where Nick and I first met. I'm pretty sure in 2006, right? Did
Yep.
you go? Did you go to the Q&A session at Barnes and Noble after the workshop?
Um, no, I did not. I
You
don't even think
didn't.
I was invited to the Q&A session, if I'm honest with you.
What? I mean, you weren't best friends with Stephen Oliver?
Well, if you remember, Stephen Oliver threatened to kick me, jump to a flying kick over the table and kick me in the middle of
No.
that. And so I
Oh,
told him
really?
that would be the last time he was joking. I had asked him a question or given him some grief, and he made like that gesture. He's like, "Don't make me come over that table with the flying sidekick." And I told him it'd be the last flying sidekick he'd ever thrown.
Oh, yeah. Yeah.
That's
Well,
kind of the end of it.
so okay. So yeah,
Oh,
because
Stephen
yeah.
Dwight. You know what? You know, one of the guys in the book, I talk about one of my high end jujitsu colleagues that had come into town, and I had lunch with him, and he was the one
Mhm.
who talked about 1,500.
Yeah, I think so. Yeah. Yeah.
He was ultimately one of the coaches under Stephen Oliver for a little while. He was like one of the mastermind guys. I'll spare
Okay.
you the name for right now, but he was a Stephen Oliver, uh, part of the group. Let's just say.
Right. Yeah. Okay. So at the Q&A, um, I asked Dan Kennedy. I told him I had heard him talk about like the people who would be considered his advanced students. These are business owners that he had taught how to run their businesses, how to write copy, how to structure the marketing campaigns and that. So in other words, they knew everything almost that he knew how to do because they had been with him long enough to learn it all. But what he said
Yeah.
is that the reason why they stick around and still pay him money every year is because of the relationship. And I told him, I said, when I first heard that, I thought martial art. He goes, of course. He goes, because there's only so many belts you can get, and there's only so many
That's
kicks
right.
and punches. And now you got that,
Yep.
right? So yeah. And I think that it's a shame that as powerful a vehicle as what we have in the martial art world, this thing called Jeet Kune, right? Why does Buzz Durkin, who teaches Shotokan, have people that stay with him, right, for 30 years? You know what I mean? On a regular basis, a regular and consistent basis. And we can't pull that
Because
off.
they built a system. They built a system in an environment that has that component to it. We didn't.
Yeah, yeah,
You know,
yeah,
the belt system is not about people's progression. The belt system is about making sure they stay with you.
yeah,
It's true.
yeah. All right.
Very few arts, and by the way, I don't want to slam on belt systems. It has merit when merit is brought to it, but unfortunately, it has been used as a bludgeoning tool at this point.
In a
You know,
lot of places where they teach without integrity. So, like you talk in the book about the guys who are putting profit before everything, right? Those are the guys that would abuse it. All right. So Mike Busky wants to know how learning to fly a plane has changed your approach to other things in life.
you appreciate things from different perspectives, much differently. Think about where I'm at, right? I mean, look, we've all been in commercial airliners, right? Like you take a American Airlines flight or whoever flight, you're flying around, but you're 30,000, 40,000 feet up in the air. You see almost nothing, right? Or we're at ground level, walking around, driving our cars. And so everything's like at a really up close perspective. What happens in between, you know? And so when you're flying at 5,000 feet, 6,000 feet, where it looks like you could pretty much jump out and
Hmm.
land on the ground, of course you die, but and so you
Right.
have to, it makes you think about a lot of things in between. So you get a different perspective. The other thing that flying has actually done, and so if you guys don't know much about flying, it is heavily based on checklists. We're
Yes.
continually doing checklists,
Yes.
right? There's a checklist for checklists. There's a checklist for getting in and getting your seatbelt on and getting the plane pre-startup. Then you have a
Hmm.
startup, and then you have all your briefing. Then you have the run up, and then you have the pre-taxi, then the taxi, then the pre-takeoff, then the takeoff, then the after takeoff, and then the departure leg, like which means you're leaving the pattern. And then so you have all these different checklists. Now, I watch a lot of videos on unfortunate incidents that happen in aviation. Okay, and much of those, because like now you can have your cell phone and like GoPros and that kind of stuff in the airplane. There's a lot of videos, and what you see is people's behavior. They become complacent on memory or instinct and not on the checklists.
Right.
And so what happens is they skip that one step that probably would have kept the plane from crashing because they zip through it in their head.
Hmm.
And so what it tells you to do is hit the brakes for a second. I know you know this. Give yourself enough discipline to go through it in redundancy to make sure it's done right.
Right.
Because if it's done wrong, the cost of being wrong is much greater than what you can afford with your pocket. You know what I mean? And so,
Yeah. Yeah.
at
Well,
least in
at,
aviation. And so
at, fi-
that's
at 5,000 feet, that's where you better have the chute, because if you jump out at 5,000 feet, that's a hop and pop. You got to pull immediately, right? You know.
yep.
Okay. Um, Doug in Iowa wants to know, where do you think? Wait, hold on. Let me move this and put this. Where do you think Jeet Kune Do would be today if Bruce Lee was still alive?
I think there'd be far. I'm not convinced if there's going to be any further more arguments amongst ourselves or less arguments amongst ourselves. But
Really?
I think it would look a lot more like I think it would look a lot more like MMA without the gloves. When I say MMA, like think about like UFC 1, 2, 3, and 4. No
Uh huh.
gloves, multiple fights in one night. I think you'd have a competitive element to it. Obviously, without the weapons, I think they'll be there. I think it would incorporate more wrestling, judo, and jiu-jitsu than it did. I think you would have a little bit of a more departure from the Wing Chun aspect of things. I think instead of seeing fencing, you'd probably see a little bit more Kali. I think that. By the way, let me kind of back into this thing. Jeet Kune Do is supposed to be a vehicle for personal liberation. So whether Bruce Lee's alive or not, what does that do for your personal liberation?
Mhm.
Your research is still your research. You're going to land where you're going to land. We're talking in mainstream. Like I saw a post from Seafood Dwight, or somebody had posted something, and Seafood Dwight had responded to this like a week ago, and the guy was like, "Man, I wish people would take JKD more mainstream." I don't. I
Mm.
absolutely do not. I do not want it mainstream because what we see in mainstream is a degradation in quality to sell seats and tickets, right? I want it to be as obscure as it is. Number one, it gives me leverage as a specialist. So it
Right,
allows me to have a niche market.
right.
Number two is that, like there's still a quality to JKD, whether you're from this camp or that camp or whatever. The practitioners are still excellent at what they do. It's not based on sheer athleticism. And that's something that happens in mainstream.
Okay.
See, for Dwight disagrees with me
Hmm.
so bad right now. He's like, you know,
Well, see, so I wouldn't mind it being mainstream, but the highest quality concierge level mainstream, right? So that imagine
yeah,
this, right? Imagine this. In you remember I was shocked when I discovered that Inosano thought that spreading the art meant having one person in every state.
right,
Right? Yeah, right?
yeah,
But
right,
imagine,
right.
but here's what I wish had happened, that whoever it was had gotten it under control. And so today, the art would be as well known as the founder of the art,
Yeah,
because
I would agree with you on that part of it.
there's a disconnect in those two arenas. The next
Yeah,
corporate event that you're instructing at, if you ask the attendees who's Bruce Lee, everybody knows who he is. If you ask them what's Jeet Kune Do, now if they know about you and your background, yeah, maybe they can answer. But if
right.
this is their first experience with you, a marked lesser percentage of people are going to recognize the term Jeet Kune Do. And that's the thing
But
that
isn't that what makes it special? The fact that not everybody knows about
no,
it, not everybody
no.
can obtain it.
Imagine if everybody knew about it, but they were fighting to get into it because it was so exclusive.
That would be an interesting. That would be an interesting problem to have.
Yeah,
you know,
right?
yeah.
Okay.
But what does that create? It creates an environment for imposters.
Well, we're always going
It
to,
also creates
yeah,
an environment,
true.
and it's also going to
Well,
create an environment where maybe the guy's not an imposter. He's just transactional. You know,
yeah,
and
but we
so
had
like
that even
and
without
so,
it being exclusive.
yeah, well,
Right? You
that's
know?
not at your academy or mine. Yeah, that's true.
Right? But yeah,
By the way, I see a guy named Albert. Albert, I actually have a student slash instructor of mine named Martin and his wife Samantha. They're up in Ottawa. They teach at one of the universities up there, something Ravens. I forgot what the thing is, but their mascot's the Ravens. So yeah, they teach a Thai boxing slash JKD class up there.
all right. Okay.
How about that?
So now let's see. Okay. So you and I both
Yep.
know that passion for martial art does not always translate into smart business. So, and you talked
Usually,
about this, right? You talked about this. What do you say to the instructor who still believes if you build it, they will come?
how many times have you built it, and why haven't they come?
Yeah,
Where are they? You
yeah,
know what I mean?
yeah.
Maybe in some places that might be true, like if a particular demographic or part of the country might allow for that, but it doesn't.
Right.
Look, increasingly so with social media, the world has gotten much smaller. You know, and so what you have is people who've understood how to communicate through the internet, why via Facebook or Instagram or TikTok or
Hmm.
whatever. But they've
Hmm.
learned how to communicate, and they can reach much farther than what you and I can with a postcard or mailer. The
Yes.
idea of it will come is never happening. It's not coming. You know, you can keep waiting. Let me know when it works out for you. It's not. And by the way, what's your idea of success? Too many of us martial artists, and by the way, I understand this particular problem just like anybody else does. A lot of people have a 9 to 5 job that supports their 6 to 9 habit, which is martial arts.
Right.
Something has to give. Either you're going to compromise yourself on the 6 to 9, or you're going to compromise yourself on the 9 to 5. Now, in the beginning days, I understand why, because you're feeding the pipeline to get you somewhere. But if you don't have a system to actually build this thing out, the rest of your life as a martial arts academy owner is going to be 9 to 5 all day and then 6 to 9 all night,
Yep.
5 times a week until you get burned out for that 3 students that you've brought in this month.
Yep.
You just can't make any money.
Right. Yeah. No. But see, but right at the beginning, when you talked about unless you have a system, well, what that is the other education that martial arts school owners have to engage in. They have to educate themselves about business systems. You know, and so
That's why it's there.
let's see.
I try to I try to give it to you. You know,
Wait, I'm
what I
trying to
didn't do
find.
was get into like a pure technical aspect because
Right.
it's hard to teach people technical stuff because that's unique to their location.
I
But I'll give
have
you all the tools you need.
I have my first complaint.
Oh no,
The chapters do not have numbers.
you know why I did that, seafood, right? It's
Right?
because I knew you were going to read from back to front, and so maybe
Yep. Right? So see, okay. You know what? Let me just go to the page. This was phenomenal. This was phenomenal. This chapter here.
be a student and be an instructor. Absolutely, I love that chapter.
Oh my God. Dare I say this and leasing, right? Probably my favorite parts of the book.
Okay.
Okay. So let me tell y'all what Nick writes about in here. The types of instructors to observe. Not see, nobody ever told me about that. Nobody ever put that in a martial art business book, Nik
But
Farooqi.
you have a natural knack for being able to recognize that. You're highly intelligent, and so you pick that up on people. Maybe it just wasn't in words, but
Yeah.
you see it for yourself.
Yeah, but it really I remember I'm reading this and I'm like, this is brilliant. Right? So okay, so talk to people. Okay, look, here's what's brilliant about it. Not only does he tell you the type of expert, right? So for example, type of instructor. Number one is the expert. But here's what Nik Farooqi does. He tells you what to watch for in the entertainer, what to watch for in the technician, what to watch for in the innovator, what to watch for in the generalist, what to watch. Nobody, Nobody put that. No other guru, to the best of my knowledge, put that specific type of information in a martial art business book, Mr. Farooqi. Brilliant. Brilliant.
I appreciate that. You know what? When I when I when you brought that up the other day when we were texting
Yeah.
on one of your train rides,
Yeah.
I thought about that. I'm like, why didn't it hit me that Seafood Dwight would appreciate that part of the book the most? You know what I mean? Like, it makes sense because, like, just knowing you over the years that I've gotten a chance to know you, which has been a real pleasure. But that seems to me like something that, like, because you read people so well and so often, and you like to, and like you said, you listen more than you speak. Even though you speak a lot, you're listening way more.
Yeah.
That's such a part of your personality, you know. And
Yeah.
so it doesn't surprise me that you would appreciate that particular chapter, you know.
Yeah.
I got
I
another
loved
friend
it.
of mine who actually contacted me today, who actually gave me this part of it. He's like, I needed this a few years ago. Crisis proofing your
Crisis.
business, because
Yeah.
we got out of COVID, and he ended up shutting his business down in
Right.
COVID.
Those stories about
You know,
the guy who went in and had the Disneyland of a gym, right? And then it
yeah,
all disappeared.
yep,
Oh, that was heartbreaking. Heartbreaking, man. You know,
it
yeah,
is.
it really is. So
You
yeah,
know,
crisis proofing. Oh, for sure. Right. Okay. All right.
yeah,
How about this one? So I hand your book to a 25-year-old black belt with no business experience, but he has a dream. What's the
yeah.
first thing you hope he understands before he signs a lease or prints a flyer? 25-year-old black belt with a dream, but no business experience. I tell him get the
I hope
book,
that he
but
understands. Yeah, right. Yeah. If I had a 25-year-old who stood in front of me and I hand him the book, and he was about ready to start his journey, what I would hope that he understood was this: you have to play the long game and not the short game. That's one part of it.
mm,
Your vision can't be 1 month from now, or 6 months from now, or 3 years from now. It has to be 10 years from now, 15 years from now, 20 years from now.
mhm,
And maybe at that point, maybe you're like me and you didn't want to own an academy forever. It was just an instrument. Or maybe you're like, that's what I want, and I want multiple schools, or whatever your thing is. I'm with it. I'm behind you.
right.
But there's a system to get there. So how
Yeah.
do I systemize that? So let's reverse engineer and make a checklist. And then once you have a checklist, what are benchmarks that we can measure off of? Because what is not measured is not managed. Okay. And
Right.
so if
Right.
you don't have benchmarks, they could be like, hey, 6 months, I should be here if I put this money in, blah, blah, blah. If you don't have that, how do you know if you're going in the right direction for your dream to come to fruition, or if you're
Mhm,
just throwing money into the fire? And so
right.
that'd be the first thing I would tell people: play the long game, look at the long game, reverse engineer, give yourself benchmarks off that particular thing, write it down, and let's make a list of how you're going to get from A to B, B to C, C to D, and beyond.
There's a certain spirituality to that advice. The whole thing about vision and 10 years from now, and imagining yourself, right? Because in the spiritual tomes, they always go. They always ask you what kind of advice you would give to your 25-year-old self. You know what I mean? Right.
Yeah,
There's a
yeah,
spiritual, yeah, component to what you're talking about. All right. Okay. So two more, and I'll let you
yep,
go.
yes, sir.
If a school owner reads your book, right? A school owner reads your book, but doesn't change anything. What's the biggest mistake that he's still making?
He wasted time reading a book and unopened to actually experimenting with some kind of change. Why read the book? Why even bother? If you're not willing to change anything, why are you getting more of an education? Just keep doing what you're doing and be sorry with your, $3,000 a month or whatever you're making.
Right. Right. Yeah. 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 Yeah.
You know,
Okay. So
I mean, Seafood Dwight, isn't it true? Look, you've taught a lot. I'm going to back into this. You've taught a lot, martial arts. You've talked to people about business aspect. You've talked to people about health and wellness and all kinds of things. Why would you have that conversation if it wasn't for the desire that this person is actually using that education to make a better outcome for themselves? I
yeah.
didn't
Well,
write a book with all this information in it because I thought I was going to be some millionaire off of a book that's on Amazon. Trust me, if you guys want to make money, don't write a book.
it's not
I
that.
did it.
Yeah.
If I can get 20 of you people in the next 10 years who can actually call me and message me and say, dude, I read your book, I implemented a bunch of stuff and it made a huge difference, then I did my part. I'm happy with that.
Yes. Yes.
You know what I
Yeah.
mean?
Yeah. Oh, for sure. For sure. Okay. Let's do this. Here's how I wrote it. I wrote it
Uh-oh.
how
Uh-oh.
to keep how to keep going. So I don't remember what it is that I was reading in the book, but that was the question. That was the wording that ran into it. How to keep going. So it must have been some part in the book where I was reading about somebody's struggle. So and that
Probably
that was
mine.
the yeah, right. So that was the formulation, right? What's the advice, recommendation, or whatever the word is for people on how to keep going?
People will stop going because they're frustrated and they lose sight of their vision. That's number one, first thing to understand, right? If you're not making any progress or you think you're not making any progress, that kind of stuff is to understand that you've lost clarity on where it is that you're trying to be. If you actually always have clarity on where you're trying to be, you'll keep chomping at it. And you have to want it bad enough where everything else is not like you have to obsess about it.
Hmm.
So I actually, this is a 1998, Tony Robbins came into the city of Chicago and did a thing. Okay, it was $500 to go. I borrowed money and I went to Tony Robbins. You guys know Tony Robbins, right? Like the motivational speaker. They called him banana fingers back in those days. I don't know what they call him now, just a guru or whatever. But back in the day,
Yeah.
this was before he was Tony Robbins. They call
Okay.
him banana fingers because his hands are like freaking mitts and his fingers look like bananas. You know what I
Right.
mean?
Yeah. Yeah.
So I went to this thing, and one of the things that he talked about during this particular thing is this. I'll give you two things actually because they're both applicable to the question. Number one is have yourself an incantation board, something you can stare at every single day that doesn't move your wallet, it moves your heart.
Yeah.
Okay, a picture of your family, a vehicle that you've been dreaming about, a house that you've been dreaming about, a checkbook that you've been dreaming about, things that have hurt you along the way, a picture of a bully from high school, things that move you. Put that on the board and spend 10 minutes a day with no noise and stare at it. Be reminded not of only where you want to be, but where you've been.
Hmm.
That's number one. Number two is this. There's a sales principle. The sales principle is as follows. Create a wound and be the solution for that wound. That's how you get sales. Okay. If I tell Seafood Dwight, man, you're getting older, you're getting fatter, your dreads are getting grayer, whatever's going on, but if you train JKD with me, I can reverse that shit in 6 months.
Right.
Okay. I
Yeah.
create a wound so bad. I create a wound so bad, and then I give him the solution. Okay, fine. Give yourself that wound,
Hmm.
and then give yourself that solution. And that, my friend, is the incantation board. Open a wound, something that hurts. I have an incantation board. The first picture on it is my father. Why? Because he passed away in 13. I have so much left to say to him. That
Yeah.
hurts me every single day. It's an emotional movement for me. And so I stare at that And I talk to that. I talk to my father that way. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And so I think about this, and I'm like, for the sake of legacy, no matter what I'm doing, one, I have to operate ethically because that's what my father required, and number two, I have to keep going.
Yeah.
That's my
Yeah.
incantation. And so that's for people who are, and I get it. I get it. Sometimes you lose a little bit of motivation, frustration. We're human, man. I'm not saying that we're not human. We all go through it. Find somebody to hold you accountable, and just make sure that you are actually held accountable, at least to yourself.
Okay. All right. On that note, my friend, it's coming up on 8 p.m. I got to go hit the treadmill.
Okay. One quick reminder for your people. Listen, I'll put the
Yes.
link up, or Seafood Dwight will put the link up in the comments. Okay. You can buy this on Amazon. Kindle version is 19 bucks. Paperback version is 24 bucks. I think the hardcover version, like an actual hardcover, is like 35 bucks or something like that. Either which way, I need 5 of you to go out and buy that tonight, okay? And then make a gentleman's agreement that you will go back and review it, or tag me on Facebook or whatever. If we can get 5, I'm going to double that money. I'm going to put in 200 bucks for the student of Seafood Dwight that is suffering with his wife fighting cancer right now, okay? That's my gentleman's agreement with you guys. Now I can't chase you down. Well, I don't know. I probably could, but I don't want to. Um, but let's move 5 of these. That's it. And I'm chipping in the rest, and we'll put in 200 bucks for Seafood Dwight's student, and we'll pray for him that things will work out the right way, as they
Appreciate
should.
it, Nick. All right. Okay, my friend. This was great. You'll be back before you write another book, but everybody's going to want a sequel.
I'm gonna, but you know what I'm gonna do? Next time I'm gonna go to the studio and make sure we're not, and it's not gonna be on Friday the 13th, and we're not gonna have technical issues.
Yeah,
Uh,
you know what? I mean, I'm tempted. I'm tempted to go back and edit it out and whatever. But we'll see. Depends on how much time I have. Because tomorrow I do my workshop up at American Dragon and what have you. And so we'll see. All right. Okay. Once again, Nik Farooqi, thank you so much, man. Always a pleasure to talk with you.
Thank you for having me, see.
All right, man. Okay. Take care. All right, guys.
I appreciate.
Okay. So that was episode 335. Yes, of the Jeet Kune dialogue. So you guys, facebook.com/Sifu Nick. That's where you can find him. I will get the Amazon link and put it in the comments. And again, like he said, if 5 of you guys will purchase the book, and believe me, right, I don't think I've ever endorsed anything in the JKD world as much as I'm endorsing this book. It really is a good book that all you guys should try, should get. Maybe even if you're not interested in running a school or something, it might still be a good education, right? So that you kind of know what it is that people are going through, right? Okay, so Sifu Nick will put the link up, and then I'll add the link to Wayne's GoFundMe, right? And I appreciate him doing that. So that's it. You guys go ahead, put your comments in. If there's anything that Nick needs to answer or that I need to answer, we'll go ahead and do that, right? Follow me on Twitter at Dwight Woods and on Instagram at Dwight D Woods, at paypal.me/unified MA Miami, paypal.me/unified MA Miami. The Jeet Kune Journey Volume 1 is available, paypal.me/unified MA Miami. You can also go over to JKD Drills on Facebook and just like and follow that page over there so that when it's up and running, you'll be among the first to know about what's going on there. And if you are on the YouTube channel, you can become a paid subscriber over there. Just click the join link and you'll see all the different levels of membership that we have. And that's it for tonight. Um, We're not on the road next week, right? So in a couple of days, I'll let you know who will be appearing next Friday on the dialogues. And so until then, this is Dwight Woods, the Jeet Kune Rebel, signing off. You guys enjoy your weekend. Happy Father's Day to the fathers out there in the Facebook and YouTube world. And I'll see you next week, right? Take care. Talk soon.